Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Books with Nate, and today I have a wrap-up video for you for the month of January and what I plan to read in the month of February and probably into March. I haven't really been making too many videos recently, just been busy with life, but yeah, so today I have a wrap-up video for you, so without further ado, let's get into it. So the first book I read is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archive, which is his sort of epic fantasy series that he's written, and just kind of general review. I really liked it. I didn't like all of it, but I think the characters were interesting, and what he kind of did with them was well done in regards to how characters dealt with some issues or like things that they were going through. Like a main theme in this is certainly depression and lack of purpose. And I think how he explored those two mental health issues with these characters was really well done. And I've read that it's really helped a lot of people too. So yeah, I thought it was a really good book. It's epic. It's out there at times, but yeah, it's a good book. It's set on this sort of fantastical world called Roshar that is very oceanic, I guess you could say. It's there's a lot of sea elements to it, but yeah, no, it's just an interesting fantasy world, and I've been wanting to get back into Brandon Sanderson for some time, so I'm happy I read this, and I read it pretty quickly, like 3 weeks for me. For this 1,000-page book is quick, so yeah, I loved it. I didn't love it. It was good. Don't oversell it, Nate. But yeah, I liked it, so I'd recommend picking it up if you're looking for sort of that epic fantasy that's I kind of compared it to in a previous video. Like, it has sort of the epicness of Malazan, but it's a little bit easier to handle, I would say. So if you're looking for something like that, I would recommend this. The second book I finished in the month of January was The Alloy of Law. This is the first book in the second trilogy or Mistborn series, also by Brandon Sanderson. I finished the first Mistborn series like when I first started getting into reading back in 2021, and I remember seeing somebody say to kind of don't, read Era 2, which is what the Alloy of Law is in, right after Era 1, which is like the Mistborn Final Empire. And, I'm glad I did. I didn't really want to read too much Brandon Sanderson in the meantime, but just kind of given that this book takes place like 300 years in the future after Mistborn Era 1, it's on the same world, but, things have changed. It's still the same magic system, but it's adapted, and it's like kind of this Western fantasy, and it's really interesting. It wasn't my favorite book in the world. I think the humor, like with other Brandon Sanderson books, is not great. It's just as in like it's just not well done versus it being bad objectively or something. Yeah, it was interesting enough for me to get into the world. I read it like right after finishing The Way of Kings, just because I wanted something more from Brandon Sanderson. So, and I didn't want to keep reading the Stormlight Archive right away. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I gave it like a 3.5 or something. It was good. It was interesting. I'll probably continue it, but we'll see. So yeah, The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. Decent book overall. It was fine. And then finally, the third book I read in January / kind of December was Demon in White by Christopher Rocchio. This is the third book in the Sun Eater series. And I love this book. The second half of the second book is kind of where the series started to pick up for me. And this third book really just elevated it. We follow Hadrian Marlowe, the Sun Eater, as he sort of gets through the events of the second book, and it takes place like a few hundred years after the second book, which is something to discuss. But yeah, there's just a lot of political intrigue. There's, you know, very heroic moments. There's very, also just very, I guess you could say, I don't know, moments where Hadrian kind of takes a step back, and you're more so with the characters doing this thing that's not epic. Like they go to a library, for example, and they're there for a few chapters, and it just kind of helps slow things down a bit, which I really liked. This book felt very episodic. I do plan to do a full review of this, I think, sometime soon, but I just sort of love the episodic feel of this book. It's kind of, I guess you'd say, split up into 4 kind of chunks, and you can kind of read it like that too. I definitely took a break after each sort of episode. Yeah, it was really well done, and I love seeing Hadrian and Valka's relationship grow, and just sort of how it's just a bit more of an adult relationship, I think, in terms of how they deal with each other and what they mean to each other, and then also just how Hadrian has grown so much as a character from the first book. He's kind of an angsty teen in book 1, and edgelord supreme of sorts, and he's definitely grown from that. And yeah, I really like it, and it was good. I would give it probably like a 5 out of 5, to be honest, or around there. It was really solid. Now on to what I'm currently reading. The first book is Reaper Scale by Stephen Erickson. This is the 7th book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I don't have the cover on. Sue me. I don't like reading with dust jackets. So anyways, I started this book back in like November, I think. It's good, and it's something I've grown into over time. It definitely took me a little bit to get into with book 7 in particular. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I like seeing sort of how the Tisti Eater and the theory have kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of interesting dynamics around empire and political structures and systems, and you can't just take out the individual at the top. It has to be a full sort of dismantling. And yeah, I just think that sort of discussion around structure in terms of power and government, it's just really interesting. The characters are really well done. Again, there are a few kind of like what it feels like repeats in regards to character story, you know, sort of where it might go. Like just with kind of a character whose, you know, their people have been subjugated and now they're, you know, helping them rise up or something, you know, which is good. It's just like, I feel like it's been done and not fully explored with a few other characters. I'm like, why don't you just kind of do that with this guy? But that's besides the point. I'm sure there's some reason behind it that I'm too stupid to comprehend. But overall, I am really enjoying it. I don't think I'll read Hold the Hounds right away. I keep telling myself I'm going to finish it, like the series, by June. But just based on kind of how I'm reading them right now, I don't think I will. So we'll see. But overall, I really do enjoy Reaper Scale, and yeah, I want to continue it. I will be doing a full review of this. I used to do like halfway through things, but that just got to be a little tedious. So yeah, Reaper Scale, proof right there, by Stephen Erickson. I will keep reading this probably I'll finish it this month. And then next up on what I'm currently reading is The Magi of Ceodor. I don't know how to pronounce this. But there you go. That book by Ellie Modesitt Jr. This is a novel in the saga of Recluse. I was gonna maybe read The Towers of Sunset or Towers of Midnight, which is the second published book, but all of his books kind of, if you read them in publishing order, they kind of take place all over the place. They just everywhere. So this is like one of the oldest chronologically uh, books that you can read in the series. So I figured, why not just start at the beginning? Because I'd rather just do that, honestly. But yeah, I started it. I'm about 100 pages in. I kind of noticed that this is a series that I read when I'm like not in a good headspace and I just need some comfort, because it's a very like low stakes almost kind of world. But I think the magic system is really interesting. It's kind of this chaos versus order, but in the first book, you kind of see that chaos is bad, order is kind of good, but not really. And in this, chaos is good, and order doesn't really exist yet. And I think that's just kind of interesting in regards to the political dynamics. This takes place like I think a few thousand years before the events of the first published book, The Magic of Recluse. So yeah, I'm gonna read this, I think, and I don't know when I'll read the second book, kind of in this duology. But yeah, no, I like it. I'll probably finish it by the end of the month. We'll see. But yeah, I'd recommend picking up this series. I don't see it a lot, so yeah, just give it a shot, I'd say. And then finally, what I like am kind of reading, but not really, is Sin Killer by Larry McMurtry. He's a famous author of Lonesome Dove, which is kind of the quintessential Western, I guess you could say. But yeah, this takes place, I think, sometime before Lonesome Dove. I think they're in the same world. But this is like the first book in I think it's called the Berry Bender novels. I have all of them behind me back there. But honestly, I was watching Killers of the Flower Moon, and for some reason I wanted to pick this up. So yeah, I'm only like 40 pages into it. I haven't read it in a week or two, but I think I'm going to continue to read this because it's pretty short, and I do want to get more into Westerns, or just kind of that style of genre. And I also have a lot of Larry McMurtry's books without reading any of them. So in an effort this year to read the books I already own, I think I'm going to try this. So we'll see. But yeah. And then finally, in what I'm going to read this month, or at least into March, the first book is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This is the third book in the Red Rising trilogy. I really liked the first two books. Book two, I think, really elevated the series a lot for me because it just felt a little bit more grown up in a lot of ways. But yeah, I started this back in December, but I think I just kind of need to focus on Demon in White instead of trying to read two sci-fi series concurrently, like I was reading them, on the same day or something. So yeah, I'm going to focus on this just so I can finish the trilogy, and I do enjoy this series. I've heard mixed things about this book in particular, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm excited to continue the series because I like it. It's good action. It's good story. Yeah, I just enjoy it overall. And then next is the Pastel City by John M. Harrison, not John M. Harrison. This is a book published back in, I think, the 70s, I believe. Yeah, 71. I just think the cover is really cool, but I also saw this book on another sort of sci-fi booktuber's channel, and I think he gave it pretty high praise. It's a really short book. It's kind of a science fiction fantasy book, kind of set in the distant future of like a dying Earth. And yeah, I saw the cover and I was like really intrigued, and I heard kind of good things about it. So, but yeah, it's kind of like a medieval setting science fantasy. So yeah, I will read this probably this month or next month. But yeah, now next up is book 2 of the Stormlight Archive, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is a big chunky book. I will probably read it this month or into next. We'll see. I will definitely be continuing it after this, I'm sure, because it's pretty good. So, yeah, this book. And then finally is Vinland Saga Volume 12. I hope to finish this actually this month or into next, like the whole, at least published English translation of the series. Yeah, I love this story. I recommend it to people all the time if they're into manga or something, or anime. It's just a really good story, and I highly recommend it if you're just looking for good storytelling, because it's great. So, yeah. So that's it from me today. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what you have on your docket for the month, and just let me know how you're doing. And yeah, I will talk to you soon.